My fight is about freedom and taking back what has been stolen from us. We are losing freedoms, one by one, that our forefathers, our brothers in arms, and my son died for. It is time we stood up for what they died for what we believe in. Our rights are being destroyed, perhaps forever. But don't you see? We're letting it happen. We're asleep. We sleep and they come in like a thief in the night and they take what's left. Wake up! We can't sleep anymore. Wake up and look around you. Look what's coming over the horizon. We can't let the enemy take one more inch. Not one more inch. We fight for freedom. We fight for freedom. We fight for freedom.
You're listening to On Top of the World Radio. I'm Christopher Story, your freedom fighter here in Homer, Alaska, the conservative bastion of the state of Alaska. As some would know it, I believe currently the city of Homer is under siege by the ACLU and 3 city council people that are actually taking legal action against a recall. Sarah Vance with the Heartbeat of Homer will be here in just a moment. We'll be talking about the recall effort here in Homer. She'll be my guest for the remainder of the program. And we'll be talking about maybe what's misunderstood about the recall effort and what will the full impact of this lawsuit brought to you by the city council people that are being recalled and the ACLU. What's that going to mean, and how and why are we talking about economic harm? What's that got to do with it? So we'll talk with Sarah Vance in just a moment about that. Later in the program, TBC Radio Word of the Day, as well as a very special Today in History brought to you by the Anchor River Inn. Please help me welcome Sarah Vance to the program with the Homer recall effort and the Heartbeat of Homer. Sarah, thanks for being here today.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me on your show.
You know, you're welcome, and thanks for making time. I know that you're busy, like all of us, and so many of us are quietly watching and wondering what's going to happen. And, well, the breaking news is ACLU joins council members to sue Homer over the recall election. Before we get to the ACLU lawsuit and maybe its ramifications and impact on Homer, why the recall at all, Sarah? Walk us through some of the facts of why is there a recall effort against Councilwoman Aderhold, Reynolds, and Councilman Lewis? Why the recall?
The recall is because they chose to mislead the public in bringing about the Sanctuary City resolution. They weren't honest, and we just don't like being lied to. This is not one of the misconceptions about this recall is that many believe it's a personal attack on the council members as individuals, and that it's about hatred. They think that we're just so mad about the Sanctuary City resolution, that we aren't tolerant, that we aren't kind, and that we just want to get back at the council members, and that is simply not true. What this is a matter of expecting honesty and integrity from our government officials.
It's interesting you should say that. I actually upset a listener so much so that he texted me and said he's never going to listen to me again. And here's why. I said that it wasn't for me. I'm talking about me personally, Sarah. It wasn't for me that they had a conversation about Sanctuary City. I know that if it had actually come to the fore as a Sanctuary City resolution, it would have been shot down. I think it might have been shot down same way, 5-1. There would have been just as many people there. But here's what I was saying with that upset this gentleman so is that it is, in fact, what has really gotten under my skin is the idea that you would have this private conversation over here, get some feedback or backlash, morph it into something over here that would test the waters of Homer. Are we or are we not inclusive? You and I both know we are. And then that in and of itself has backlash when the inclusivity resolution is killed 5-1. It's got this pendulum effect of harming us in both capacities. And in my real upset here is in how they handled it relative to the truth and honesty. And I think that we're on that same page. What else, as you deal with this all the time now, this has become a real focus of yours, what else are you seeing through social media or other channels of communication that you believe is a misconception about why the recall of these 3 Homer City Council people?
Well, the latest complaint is that we have violated their free speech. And this is not about free speech, but about the democratic process that has been granted to us under our Constitution. And they are choosing, by involving the ACLU and suing the city of Homer, they are choosing to stifle our free speech in trying to stop the vote.
It would have been interesting if, well, I'll tell you something. It's neither here nor there, but I was in a position, non-elected as far as the public is concerned, as a private organization, was going to represent this organization statewide. That organization told me, by the way, from the national level down to the state level down to me, that I would be supporting publicly Senator Mark Begich in his reelection, and that if I couldn't have any other opinion than that, because that was part of the duties, that was part of the oath I had sworn to that organization. And I said, then this is where we must part ways. And I resigned from that post so I could go out and speak at my own heart's content and not affect everybody else in the organization with me. And to me, there's no, they did not forego any freedom of speech, but there is definite economic harm that can be brought upon a community based on what the leaders do. Would you talk about that? What do you mean, and what does the petition actually mean and say relative to the economic harm aspect of this whole thing with the recall?
Well, in the ACLU's memo that they put out, the three council members, Adderhold, Lewis, and Reynolds, have asked that the legal fees incurred be paid for by the city of Homer. So the original special election that held for June 13th was going to cost the city $5,400. That amount is already allocated for in the budget. So it's not costing the city additional money. But now, because these three council members have brought in the ACLU and are suing the city of Homer, stating that they are not being recalled, that there's no grounds for recall, then they are costing the city tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees that we don't know the amount yet. And that they are asking to not only pay for that, but their legal fees as well. So the repercussion of this is going to be longstanding. And my question is, how many city services are we going to have to do without, or these other projects that are so needed in our community, like the sidewalks and the trails, that have been brought forth for more than 30 years. So we have these projects that are needed, but we simply don't have the funds to make it happen. Now, these three are pushing those needed projects farther away because we're going to have to put in money into these legal fees. This is definitely having an economic impact on the city of Homer, and the repercussion of all of this has already spread like wildfire all over social media, and people are saying to boycott Homer because of this.
That's been okay. So that's interesting because the ACLU lawsuit has opened up a new wound via social media and from residents around the state of Alaska that are suggesting that Homer is a good place to avoid as a result of this ACLU challenge of the recall. But Sarah, that actually we saw. This is a repeat of what we saw during the whole discussion of the inclusivity resolution / previous to that sanctuary city resolution. So how does one go about quantifying this economic harm brought by these three and their actions?
It can't be quantified, but we have asked that if you have suffered business loss directly accounted to the sanctuary city resolution, or now this action brought on by ACLU and these three council members, to email us. We have set up an email account, businessloss2017@gmail.com, and we are starting to document the business loss because our council members need to know the economic impact that their irresponsible actions have caused in this community. Every dollar counts when it comes to business in this town, and we cannot afford to lose any of it. My mom has been in the bed and breakfast and tourism industry for more than 20 years, and I traveled with her to many places in the state trying to promote Homer as this is a great place to come. You need to come and experience all the wonderful things. It's not just a fishing town. It's not just an artist town. There's so many wonderful activities here in Homer, and it's beautiful. You don't want to miss out on it. And we had to go and personally sell the idea that Homer was not just a hippie town. It took a lot of years to finally build that up. And then you begin to see Homer as one of the places to go before you die. It suddenly became this hot spot. And now, since the Sanctuary City resolution was brought into the limelight, and now this ACLU lawsuit, people are saying, boycott Homer. We don't want to go there with all this craziness happening. How could this be after all of this hard work of promoting our wonderful town?
Yeah, it's sad, and here's the other thing, and I think there's an opportunity for you and I and all of the people out there in this area to tell a different kind of story. And the story that I've been telling since this has started is such that Homer, by its very nature, is one, inclusive, two, diverse. We always have been, always will be. And guess what? All kinds of diversity have been included, inclusive, and part of this community from the very beginning, before there actually was a city of Homer in 1964, just as an area.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is such a sad state of affairs all the way around. And I think that what we see here, Sarah, this is just my ponderings, my musings on the subject, is I believe what we see is inertia. I think that as my good friend Mark says, it's too late in the dance to call her ugly. I believe what's happening is that these three people that are just awesome people by their own nature, good people, good, hardworking people in our community, Adderhold, Reynolds, and Lewis, all three have wonderful aspects that they bring to our very diverse community, and now they've gotten to a point where maybe they feel a little painted into a corner, and we're seeing something that I consider to be pretty ugly. And I think that's when you get the ACLU involved and you begin to sue your own community rather than step aside or stand down and say, you know what? Yeah, let's let the people decide on June 13th. Let's just do that. Instead, when one puts their own interest first, and that's the only thing that could be here, is putting their own interest first. To me, it's a very sad day. However, I will continue to tell the story of Homer being diverse, inclusive, and prosperous, and a great place to grow your family and grow yourself as a person.
Yes, we absolutely need to continue to have that, because the bottom line is, regardless of what happens with this recall, regardless of what happens with the lawsuit involving the ACLU, is we'll still be community members. We will still be friends and neighbors and want to carry on. And we do need to have that in our heart, in our mind, that we are going to be kind, we're going to get along and do the very best for Homer as a whole. But the sad part is that on the motion of the ACLU, it is said that they are seeking expedited declaratory and injunctive relief to secure their rights in advance of the June 13th election. So what this is telling, bottom line is, they don't want the recall special election to happen. Like you said, they're taking their personal interest to heart. Mm-hmm. If they were so secure in their actions that regarding the Sanctuary City resolution and the recall, and they felt that they had the support of the community, then why would they want to stop the election? What would they have to lose?
That's an excellent point. Sarah Vance, Homer Recall, Heartbeat of Homer. Tell me quickly, we've got to run, but what's a website where people can go and get facts separated from any emotion or opinion?
We have a Facebook page called Homer Council Recall that we have been listing all the city council memorandums, all of the articles, and the information where in the emails from the city council members themselves, so you can get straight facts.
All right. Sarah Vance, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, there you have it. We'll talk about that a little bit more, and we've got coming up your TVC Radio Word of the Day and Today in History here on Top of the World. Stick around.